Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another detailed forecast update coming your way. We're going to spend this forecast update recapping on the severe thunderstorms that have lashed the southeast of Queensland. We're also going to talk about some more thunderstorms that are on the way for the southeast of Queensland and also into parts of New South Wales. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're getting closer and closer to 20,000, and all support helps around here, and I thank you for in advance. Anyways, let's start things off over in the southeast of Queensland. They have had 2 consecutive days of powerful severe thunderstorms over there, as you know if you live in the southeast of Queensland, with some massive rainfall accumulations not only over the past 24 hours but over the past 48 hours. Some locations around the scenic rim and Mount Tamborine have picked up a whopping 150 millimeters plus over the past 24 hours, and a lot of that fell in really quick succession from these thunderstorms that belted through last night. They blew up in dramatic fashion in the late afternoon and just stayed still for time upon time. And let's load up some archive imagery of said thunderstorms from yesterday, because they were very significant indeed, and quite a concerning amount of rainfall has fallen as a result of these systems. So let's take a look at some archive radar and satellite imagery and see what they look like as they blew up and as they happened. So later on in the afternoon hours, we did see some thunderstorms slowly start to build across parts of southeastern Queensland as this imagery slowly loads in. You can see them here on this imagery. They're really blowing up in quite dramatic fashion already over the parts of central Queensland and then into the southern parts of Queensland as well, with some powerful supercell thunderstorms developing around Dalby and Toowoomba, then moving into the southeastern corner of Queensland and causing some significant problems there. And you can see them here by around 5 or 6 p.m. local time. They're already starting to cause some pretty significant problems for parts of the scenic rim and Mount Tamborine, that location around the Gold Coast. There's some very heavy falls being reported along the Gold Coast and then up towards the Sunshine Coast as well. Some isolated thunderstorms up there. Now later on in the evening at around 7 or 8 p.m. they stayed pretty stagnant across parts of the southeast of Queensland, impacting areas around the Cape Byron and Tweed Heads location. That's where the highest accumulations of rainfall were picked up, that 185 millimeters just outside of Marumba. Very significant rainfall accumulations there, especially from thunderstorms in general. 185 millimeters over a 3-day period down there is significant, but most of that fell in a 3-hour period, so the rainfall was torrential. There's no other word to really describe it. And then even up towards Rockhampton, Agnes Water, Gladstone, they got belted by severe thunderstorms in there around the 5 to 6 p.m. mark here. You can see a line of very severe thunderstorms heading for Gladstone at around 7 p.m, crossing through at around 7:30 as well. And even earlier on in the afternoon at around 3 or 4 p.m, there were some substantial thunderstorms going for the Agnes Water and Gladstone area, and even down towards Bundaberg as well, some substantial thunderstorms there, and some fantastic cells inland as well towards Dingo, Ogmore and Rockhampton. And there were enough thunderstorms and enough thunder cells, especially further inland towards communities such as Emerald and Dingo, for there to be widespread rainfall, and widespread very heavy rainfall as well. Yes, there were locations that missed out. I don't think Rollaston got anything significant from these thunderstorms, just a couple of millimeters, for example. And the same story for Emerald. There were always going to be locations that did miss out, and those locations did last night. However, for the most part, especially as you got closer to the coastline, just with how many thunder cells there are, and as they combine into one big thunderstorm system, basically across the entirety of southeastern Queensland, the majority of locations did pick up some pretty significant rainfall accumulations, which is fantastic to see, because even though they have had some good rain recently across the southeast and the central coast, they definitely did need a top-up. 185 millimeters down towards Lismore, definitely excessive, considering they've had about 500 millimeters in the past month now. Substantial September and October rainfall down there. However, still, for the most part, the rainfall was necessary for a lot of these locations, and it has been fantastic to see. And peak rainfall accumulations as well in some of these thunder cells. This is one going for Kingaroy. We're talking about it's such intense precipitation. I mean, this number is a little bit misleading here, but 5-minute accumulations would have equated to 10 to 15 millimeters, potentially even more, up to 25 millimeters outside of Kingaroy in just a 5-minute burst of rainfall. So we were talking about some very significant rainfall accumulations here, and this thunder cell in particular is one that I did want to talk about. I was watching this on the radar yesterday. You see how it's shaped like a bit of a on its side J? That's what we call a hook echo. Now, this thunderstorm definitely was rotating. It was a supercell storm, and it might have produced a tornado at some point. I didn't read any news articles about tornadoes either, so that is fantastic news. I did always say that there was going to be a risk of tornadoes yesterday, but it wasn't going to be that great, and it was going to be in the early afternoon and evening. But if one cell was going to produce a tornado or a twister, it was going to be this cell here. Now, these are the types of shapes that I want you to be looking out for on the radar next time we get significant severe thunderstorms. This is what we call a hook echo in the meteorology world, and those can cause some pretty big problems for communities. All in all, a very significant severe thunderstorm outbreak, and it is a taste of things to come this thunderstorm season, and we're not done yet either. Let's break down the forecast right now. So initially, we're going to be talking about a few more showers along the Sunshine Coast into the southeast of Queensland throughout the course of this morning and into the early afternoon hours. The showers will persist north of Maroochydore later on into this evening, but they will be light and far spread, and the rainfall completely clearing out later on today, which is great news because I bet they are sick of it. However, again, this weekend we've got a bit of a thunderstorm outbreak expected into the northeast of New South Wales, and that will extend into extreme southeastern Queensland around the Toowoomba, Ipswich and Bow Desert area. I'm not expecting severe thunderstorms on Saturday afternoon and evening, but we could see one or two cells with some heavy rainfall, damaging winds, and potentially medium to large sized hailstones. Nothing like the 7 or 8 centimetre stones we saw outside of Dalby and Kingaroy yesterday. That was tremendous, that was. So these thunderstorms here are not going to be anything like what we did see over the past 48 hours, but still a heads up, a couple of potentially severe thunderstorms are possible on Saturday. A couple of showers moving through on Sunday as well, potential for a thunderstorm or two Sunday night before it clears out for Monday, and then into the early parts of next week as well. Tuesday we could be talking about another minor thunderstorm outbreak across parts of southeastern Queensland. You can see by Tuesday late afternoon and early evening a few thunderstorms firing up around Warwick and Toowoomba and into Brisbane and the Gold Coast, but again, nothing too significant there, nothing crazy. And then Wednesday we could be talking about some more thunderstorms blowing up as well, north of the Sunshine Coast up towards Bundaberg, Agnes Water and Rockhampton. Again, I'm just not seeing severe thunderstorms or potentially severe thunderstorms. In terms of chances of severe thunderstorms, it looks like Tuesday the 15th of October does have that greatest chance of potentially severe thunderstorms, but it's going to be nothing like what we've seen over the past Tuesday and Wednesday. Very significant severe weather, that's for sure. And then much later on into the forecast period, next Saturday the 19th of October does look a little bit interesting as well, but that's still 10 days away, so we're going to have to wait and see on what actually happens there. The worst of the thunderstorms are over for at least the time being, but we are still talking about a couple of days of potentially severe weather for parts of southeastern Queensland. Now, rainfall on Saturday going to be basically nothing. A few places could pick up 25 millimetres across the southeast of Queensland. We'll get to New South Wales in just a few minutes. Same story for Sunday, a few drops possible here and there, and then Tuesday and Wednesday we could be talking about a few drops of rainfall around Toowoomba. The rainfall will be slightly wider spread as well, but again, nothing too heavy. Definitely nothing up towards 50 or 60 millimetres. Like we have been seeing, or definitely nothing close to 185 millimetres either, like we saw yesterday evening. And then Wednesday, a few more drops also expected from thunderstorms up on the Sunshine Coast. The rainfall will be a little bit more widespread on Wednesday, so next week we could be talking about a few more thunderstorms up there. But yeah, all in all for Queensland, very significant severe weather. If you have experienced severe weather or significant thunderstorms, then please let me know what it was like in the comment section down below. I'm especially interested if you're around Kingaroy and Dalby, where they did receive those giant hailstones and very heavy rainfall, and even down towards the Gold Coast and the Scenic Rim as well with that very heavy rainfall there. Some locations did miss out, but the majority of them picked up some very significant severe weather, and if you have experienced it and you've got a story to tell them, please do leave it in the comment section down below. I want to hear everything. Now let's head into New South Wales, because we do also have some severe thunderstorms now on the forecast for parts of New South Wales as well. Saturday, once again, we could be seeing a couple of severe cells fire up later on in the afternoon and evening. You can see it here across the northeast and the parts of the central inland areas as well, extending from Orange and Dubbo up towards Tamworth and Armidale as well. It's going to wet the track up quite nicely around Bathurst with the Bathurst 1000, which could create some pretty interesting driving conditions. A few showers also possible on Sunday for the big race, and some showers also expected up into the northeast of New South Wales. But again, it looks like it's going to be good weather conditions as well for the Bathurst 1000. All things considered, by the time those thunderstorms get in on Saturday, some of the races should be done. And then for the big race on Sunday, it looks like we've just got the chance of a couple of showers around the Bathurst sort of area, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that bad, and the showers should keep themselves outside of Bathurst for the most part. By the looks of things, they'll stop by the time they get to around Lithgow, and then showers will be further north up towards Dubbo and Lightning Ridge and Moree and those communities out there. So all in all, a pretty good weather forecast for the big race, and I'm backing Ford. I'm a proud owner of a Ford, so let's go Ford. Well, Mustang these days, but would be amazing if we could see Mustang pull off a win for the first time in a couple of years. I mean, Chevy does have quite a few wins under their belt, belt's not looking good, and precedence does say that Chevy is going to win, but hopefully Mustang can come through with a victory, which would be fantastic to see. Now, into next week as well, we've got a few thunderstorms firing up across New South Wales on Tuesday afternoon, or morning and afternoon, especially into the northeast. We could actually be seeing potentially severe thunderstorms by late morning, early afternoon on Tuesday next week, and those are the storms that I've been talking about for parts of southeastern Queensland as well in the last couple of minutes. Again, nothing too crazy by the looks of things, but there could be some isolated pockets of heavy rainfall, and you can see that actually on the rainfall forecast over the next 10 days. There is actually some substantial rainfall on the forecast outside of Coffs Harbour and Armidale, up to 100 millimetres of the stuff, and on top of the 185 that they've received in these areas over the past 12 hours even, I don't think 100 millimetres over the next 10 days is going to be all too welcome for some of these locations. Again, thunderstorms persisting into Wednesday as well, showers and thunderstorms persisting into Wednesday with an offshore low pressure system, and then next weekend we have a couple of showers and thunderstorms moving through, and this weather event I would just like to talk about a little bit more. What's going to happen is we're going to see a low pressure system build in the Great Australian Bight sometime later next week, Thursday and Friday, and this low pressure system is going to be reasonably strong as well, moving into Tasmania, bringing some showers and wintry weather there, and then dragging an awful lot of just convective activity and cloud from the Northern Territory, extending with troughs up to a low pressure system in the Northern Territory, and it's going to provide a bit of a rainfall event across central parts of Queensland, the majority of New South Wales even, and some severe thunderstorms are expected. So this is certainly something we're going to have to watch later on in the forecast period, sometime this weekend and into early next week, because this is an interesting weather event, and quite a bit of rainfall is also now on the cards over the next 10 days across parts of New South Wales, Queensland, SA and the NT. So we will be watching things very closely. This is certainly a bit of an interesting weather event here, typical for this time of the year, but it looks a little bit too wintry for me to be making final calls on this weather event, and it's also 10 days away, so a lot of the details still need to be ironed out. In short, it looks like Queensland's going to get a temporary hiatus of a few days from severe thunderstorms and thunderstorms in general. However, they will be returning, and they will be returning in fashion on Tuesday and Wednesday by the looks of things, with some potentially severe ones as mentioned in the northeast of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland. Now, in terms of tropical weather up in the far north of Queensland, there is a little bit of rainfall still on the cards. There's going to be some coming through throughout the course of today as well. You can see it here streaming in at this time. A few showers expected up there, especially along the Cassowary coast and even up into the Daintree. And this afternoon and evening out towards Mount Carbine, there's also the chance of a few storms, so we will keep a close eye on things on the radar. Definitely nothing severe though. But just with the combined cool moist air streaming in from the ocean and the warm moist air over the Cape York Peninsula, we could be talking about a few storms expected to fire up on the radar later on this afternoon and evening. It'll be a pretty good environment for them. In terms of rainfall accumulations, though, really nothing to write home about, but it looks like a lot is now streaming down into the Coral Sea, and it's only going to be a couple of weeks until this gets itself over the far north of Queensland, and we see those pretty big rainfall accumulations pipe up. As usual, Northern Territory and WA looking like there's thunderstorms firing up on a pretty consistent basis up there as well. Pretty much every evening from now on, we're seeing thunderstorms and rainfall fire up across the Kimberley and then into the Northern Territory as well. Things are starting to get wetter, and they're also starting to get quite warm, especially into next week. Monday onwards, we're expecting temperatures to go into the early 40s across much of WA and parts of the Northern Territory, and then into the mid 40s possible by Tuesday and Wednesday, especially into the Northern Territory and parts of South Australia as well. You can see temperatures up to 45 on Wednesday outside of Minturpie, Oodnadatta and Coober Pedy. It's going to be quite a warm one, then 46 on Thursday, and potentially slightly warmer on Friday as this weather system tracks through parts of the South Australia northeast rather, and then into the Northern Territory and into Queensland. Some high temperatures are possible there, but it is going to get quite hot. It's going to get quite hot quite fast. Things are certainly starting to become a little bit more tropical across much of Northern Australia. It's slowly happening, and that wet season is breaking pretty soon. Now, just before I finish off this video, we're going to head over to the United States, Florida in specifically, where outside of Sarasota and Tampa, that sort of area, we have major Hurricane Milton making landfall at this time. It's a Category 3 strength system on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale with peak winds of 200 kilometers an hour. That would still qualify it as a borderline Category 5 on the Australian cyclone scale. This system is very powerful, but as you know, and if you've noticed from watching the previous updates on this channel, it is just a fraction of its form former self. It's much weaker thanks in part to wind shear ripping this storm apart and the cooler sea surface temperatures from other major hurricanes that have hit Florida this hurricane season already. But some very significant rainfall is streaming ashore. We're expecting up to 250 millimeters of the stuff outside of the Tampa Bay area later on today, and then a further 100 millimeters is also possible as this system tracks across Florida. We could be seeing peak accumulations around Orlando, Daytona Beach, and up towards the Palm Coast and Jacksonville between 10 and 15 inches, which is between 250 and 400 millimeters. A fraction of what sometimes falls in Australia, but still some pretty significant weather for Florida, and only 2 weeks after major Hurricane Helene made landfall over there, so some very significant weather conditions have been moving through. St. Petersburg, just outside of Tampa, has wind gusts up to 100 kilometers an hour. It's going to get quite strong there as well, down towards Venice as well, winds up to 100 kilometers an hour, 104 kilometers an hour at Punta Gorda Airport outside of Sarasota. Those winds are quite strong, even on the backside of the system as well, but the key points to take away is that this system is making landfall right now on top of Sarasota with a massive storm surge and some very significant winds and rainfall, but it is weakening rapidly. It is only a fraction of its former self. I mean, take a look at it right now, and then take a look at it 12 hours or just before 12 hours ago. It still had an eye, and it looked absolutely frightening on radar and satellite imagery. So thank you very much to wind shear for weakening this system substantially. Wind shear basically blows all of the thunderstorms away from the rotating fashion of this hurricane. So hurricanes and tropical cyclones are rotating systems of thunderstorms, and they blow the thunderstorms apart. The wind shear blows the thunderstorms apart and makes the system very disorganized, and as such it weakens. So we can thank wind shear for disorganizing this storm and as such weakening it, and it's often something that gets the Australian cyclones as well. In fact, especially across towards Queensland, it's often why systems don't get very strong over around the Coral Sea earlier on in the cyclone season, because wind shear is just too high. And if you are an avid tracker, you'd remember Tropical Cyclone Niran. As it blew through the Coral Sea, it found high levels of wind shear around here, and as such it became very disorganized very quickly and weakened as it got itself towards New Caledonia after a tremendous bout of rapid intensification over parts of the tropical North Queensland coastline. So yeah, that's a bit of a take on what's happening around the world in the weather world as well. A very powerful hurricane heading for Florida, powerful thunderstorms across Queensland and New South Wales, significant severe weather still on the way as well. Stay tuned for more updates. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We did hit 19,000 about 24 hours ago, so thank you so much for all the support recently, and we're just within 1,000 now of hitting 20,000 subscribers. And I know I don't do this for the numbers, I do it because I enjoy it, and I do it because I love presenting the weather to a wide audience around Australia, and I'm very honoured to have the position that I'm currently in. But yeah, 20,000 subscribers, that's a huge milestone for me, and it is amazing to see how many people that we have reached with this weather venture. So thank you so much for the support in the channel recently, and thank you so much for the channel sponsors as well. Their names are on screen right now, and they give me access to all of the fancy software that I use. That is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.